all of a sudden the words "My daddy has got a gun" appears.
But we all got on that private jet and we're like, oh my God.
And
Like,
it was certainly during a time where it was like,
we should not have had a private jet.
Does anyone ever just like sit and listen to music anymore without doing anything else while they're listening to music?
Welcome, Mother. Thank you so much for joining us on a UK tour at the minute. How's the tour going so far, or the whole European tour, in fact?
Well, so far the European tour is a UK tour predominantly, except for 2 shows in Dublin. Yeah, we spent so much time in the UK, more than we ever have on any other tour. So that's been really cool, getting to know that culture a bit more and just seeing these cities and towns that we've heard of and never been to. Everyone's getting along pretty well. Yeah, Jasmine and I here. Jasmine to my left. We get into the odd scrap, but it's always underpinned with a lot of love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how we keep going.
Yeah.
And the new album, Grief Chapter, is out now.
Yeah.
What's the reception been like for that so far?
Really good. Yeah, the fans seem really excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the second most important thing. The first is that we like it, and then the second is that they like it. And both camps seem happy, so it feels like a success.
Yeah, definitely. I love the album. There's a lot of really deep messages on there and meaningful messages. One of my favourite songs is The Matrix. It's kind of about, the message I took from it is life's a bit too short to get stuck in those boring, meaningless moments and those periods of life, and to just kind of go out and have fun. What was the inspiration behind that song specifically? Was there any?
We had just finished a stadium tour with Imagine Dragons.
Wow.
And it was just a few days after getting back from Europe, having this really grand, huge experience. And I think that energy was kind of still in the air. And I think that accounts for the anthemic nature of that song, just how big it is innately. It's like, let's write a stadium song. I wasn't super conscious of a thought, but that's how I make sense of that. And then the lyrics, I mean, like all of the lyrics in our music, it's kind of just born from riffing around and spewing gibberish and finding syllables that feel right. And then a word appears, and then that kind of directs the theme of the song. I think we like sort of anti-establishment, damn the man kind of sentiments. And certainly we like sentiments surrounding individualizing oneself and following your path and following your truth and not, reading from the script. And so, yeah, I think it was just us being ourselves.
Nice. I love that.
So as a whole, would you say that the process that you go through for songwriting, is it quite collaborative between all band members? Would you say you all implement your own tastes and different techniques into the songs at the end?
Not really. I'm the songwriter. So it usually just starts with me kind of finding a song by myself. And then once it's sturdy enough to kind of stand on its own 2 feet, all the words are done, all the parts are done, bring it to the band, and then we as a group kind of discern it and then bring it to life and give it our unique flavor. And everyone kind of injects their personality into it. Yeah, like so when Jasmine started singing The Fuck Knows in the Matrix, it just really like made that part pop open.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the beauty of that phase of the creative process for us, is after the song is written, just seeing how much better it gets once, ninjas like Jasmine get their hands on it.
So it's a case of bringing the song through and then saying, I've got this great idea, here's the bass print, can you guys help me finish this off and make this a massive tune?
Yeah. That's the goal.
Yeah, fantastic.
And how would you say, over the course of being a band, obviously been making music for nearly 20 years now, if not more than that, probably even prior to being in a band full on, how has that production element evolved over time? I imagine when you first started, it was probably like in a shed somewhere or in a garage or something, just recording. How has that changed up to now?
Yeah, you're not far off there. It started in like the attic of a house, basically. And that's where we made our first record. So obviously, it's gotten bigger in terms of like, studio space and resources, better gear. And we began a little more lo-fi, a little more acoustic. And as the years have gone on, we've implemented new technology in the production and both on stage with synthesizers and stuff like that and sampling and drum pads and whatnot. But, you know, on this record, we definitely wanted to, like, harken back to our roots a bit and have really stellar moments of, like, intimacy and acoustic folkiness, because I think, you know, that's who we are at our heart. That's where we came from, and also we just love that kind of music, and so do the fans.
I think I like the idea of, you know, stripping it back a bit after going down a certain path and thinking, right, let's go back to where we were, because I think a lot of there's definitely routes that certain bands can take where they end up veering so far away from their initial sound that there's a potential they could alienate the fan base. So I think it's good to know that, you know, it's a case of bringing it back and, you know, maybe providing things that people will go, oh, this is great, yeah.
I think messaging that's been consistent across the whole of your discography is kind of that accepting everyone, making sure everyone feels accepting within the music. And especially on the earlier albums, I feel like that was a little bit ahead of its time, maybe. And then obviously we've seen some of those earlier albums and earlier tracks really blow up in the last few years, especially with social media, etc. How does it feel after all those years that messaging has really started to become a massive thing online and really come together within your fan base?
It's cool. It's super cool. And I totally agree. I think it was a little bit early, like in terms of generationally, when Touch Up came out and Brian had all these themes of kind of like what makes a man, kind of like gender norms and that kind of questioning stuff. That stuff really wasn't, I mean, it was kind of talked about in a more fringe kind of societal way, but not in this huge way that is happening now. And I think it took until this generation of kids to have this more massive movement towards that kind of stuff. And I think that's why they connect. Like, it's just so many more people are connecting because those kids are those kinds of people, which is so cool. I never thought it would happen, but it did.
I think it's the advent of social media as well, which pushes all your music to people that wouldn't even know who you were prior to hearing it on, you know, TikTok or something like that. And then once they hear it there, they go, oh, this band sounds great. I'll go look at their back catalogue. And then they're accessing your whole discography and realising, oh, no, this is the band I want to listen to. Yeah.
Yeah, well, to go back and be like, oh, there's 8 other albums is pretty wild, right? That's not the usual, so...
And I think a lot of the songs off, you know, your first couple of albums do stand to this day where if you told somebody they were released, you know, within the past couple of years, people would say, oh, yeah, no, that's believable, which is probably surprising to people to know songs like Hayloft are from as long ago as they actually are. I imagine they'd think it was a lot more recent. Yeah.
That's cool to hear.
Yeah.
It's fun seeing people be baffled in the comment section why this stuff is so old. They're like, what? This came out in 2008. I wasn't even born. All those little emojis with the head exploding. It's like, it feels cool. It feels like, I don't know, we somehow got away with something. It's cool.
How did it feel to go back and make a second version of Hayloft not too long ago? What was that experience like?
That was great, really, honestly. It was a really fun songwriting challenge and something that I personally had never done before, like write a sequel, continue a narrative, and really kind of like ask myself what the story of Hayloft actually was retrospectively. Because like you write songs, you don't really, for me anyway, I don't really like know what most of other songs are about. I never really knew what Hayloft was about until it came time to write a sequel and almost invent what it was about. And that was just a really fun process. And I think we loved recording it. It was a song that just
really
kind
fun.
of came together with a lot of fire and a lot of fluidity. And and then it just dropped really hard. People loved it. So it was a plan that kind of like shouldn't have worked, but worked gloriously.
So was it something that perhaps because it was released on the deluxe version of the album, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And that's where it came out. So were you planning to put it on the original, or was it always something that you thought, we'll leave this one for the
No, we wrote it for the deluxe. It was sort of like we need songs for a deluxe. And how about that?
Yeah.
How about Hayloft II? And, you know, people are kind of like, you're crazy, honestly. Like, it's just so destined to flop. And it's like, well, let me just, like, you know, like, post a teaser. It was like me just kind of like singing some gibberish and playing a new riff, really, really scrappy, and just posted it online. It was like, what do you guys think about the idea of a Hayloft II? And then the fans spoke. It was just like a really big positive response. And so at that point, it's like, okay, well, we have to do it. We posited the idea, and then they approved. Not that we need approval, but with something like a sequel to your viral hit, you don't, you know, you don't want to be careless.
Yeah, of course.
So, yeah, once they kind of like spoke, it was like, okay, it's go time.
I think when I was looking into this podcast, it's really hard to put you guys in a box of like a genre. There's like so many different subgenres of rock, and as you said, the synthesizing and stuff in the new album as well. And I didn't know where to put you. And you said there when you were looking at Hayloft II, people originally said, why are you going to rewrite your biggest hit? Why are you going to do a version 2 of it? Why are you going to risk it in many ways? How did you find it when you were first starting out as a band with that sound? What was people's reaction to that initially? And how did you find it releasing music back then?
Whenever we played for people, like whether it was a coffee shop or a small club, people, they would smile and their eyes would get wide. Like you could feel that we were, you know, delivering something different and a little bit weirder. And it seemed like it was having a delightful reaction. And that it always felt good in that context, in playing for people in a room sharing the same oxygen. And then, but the industry has so many other different filters. Once it's like you put it out to radio or you I don't know, get online. Even back then, everything was still kind of online. Yeah, then the reaction was a little bit more of a head scratcher, I think. It never felt as right and connected beyond the space of the venue.
Right.
I guess like in the media, that kind of thing.
So it's like the live shows were always unbelievable. Everyone's clearly loving it, but the media is always a tricky one to break, isn't it? I think the way that the media works has changed so much in the last 10 years because of like, well, things like this podcast and YouTubers and everything. It's more so not traditional media anymore. And I actually wanted to ask about how you feel about maybe that digitalization of music in many ways, because now with Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube and everything, I bet when you first released music, it was a little bit more concentration on physical form.
Oh, yeah. Entirely on physical form.
Yeah.
There was MySpace.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we were around for the advent of MySpace. I remember like having to pick the 3 songs that existed at the top of the page.
Everyone was friends with Tom.
Yes, and everyone was friends with Tom.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just like there's always going to be something new that comes along in the evolution of the music industry and how we consume it. And it almost kind of doesn't matter. It's like what matters is just make good music, and then whatever is the next way of distributing it, utilize that and carry on.
That's the evolution of any industry, really, right? Like there's so many things in which somebody couldn't pivot and just was like, no, stuck to their guns and lost their businesses or whatever it was over time because they couldn't sort of change with how the world is changing. So we're always going to have to deal with that on some level, whether we're musicians or not. So, yeah, it's just another one of those things.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to things like, well, for example, TikTok, like we were touching on before, it's such a strange medium that you wouldn't ever think that, you know, before TikTok was around, nobody would ever think, okay, these short form 15-second clips is what's going to cause virality for artists. But stuff like that comes along, surprises the whole industry, and then people have to adapt to it. Well, I mean, you don't have to adapt to it, but obviously it's something that you should definitely take into mind to start working towards those kind of hits then going forwards.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I've got a question that we ask every guest on the podcast. We get some wild answers, some ones that we don't expect, and it is for your dream festival. So we want a Friday, a Saturday, and a Sunday night headline. It can be any artist, dead or alive. It's just your dream festival.
We've had super groups. We've had super groups of people that have passed that are still alive. You know, different. So we can just merge anybody up if you wanted to.
Okay.
We always get some good answers.
So we want like a 3-day festival?
Yeah,
what
like three
headliners.
headliners. And if you want to
3
throw in a few
headliners.
smaller acts, maybe give them a shout out, that's fine as well. But
Okay.
just 3 headliners. Maybe a Friday night. People sometimes say Sunday, you want to calm it down before you go home, or end it on a bang. I don't know. It's up to you how you want to set it up. I love this because it puts everyone on the spot.
It
Everyone's
always
like,
takes a
It's
second,
like,
you see,
okay,
oh,
let's
hang on.
see.
I mean, I guess Friday's really got to go off with a bang. Yeah.
Definitely.
Maybe Led Zeppelin.
Led Zeppelin, that's a
Friday
good
night.
one. Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
a great shout.
And Saturday, what do you think, Jazz?
Well, I definitely think I would get the Beatles back together for a show.
yeah, that'd be
Saturday
That's
night.
got to be either Saturday. Well, Sunday it might be good to end on the Beatles.
Want to end on the Beatles?
What about Saturday?
Saturday, maybe like Pantera with Dimebag Daryl.
Oh,
Right?
that's a
We
great
bring
shout.
Dimebag
Yeah,
back from the dead?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We've definitely not heard Pantera
Not
before.
yet. No,
Okay, there
no.
you go.
Yeah,
That would
that's
be
the first for
sick.
Pantera.
That would be sick.
Yeah.
Do you know what?
I like our festival.
Yeah, I like
want to
our
go.
festivals too.
I would say let's somehow do it, but I think the Beatles might be a bit hard to
Yeah,
might
it'd
be
be
a
a
bit hard to
difficult
book
one.
nowadays.
Yeah.
I'm surprised
Yeah.
though. I was expecting Lana Del Rey to make it on that list because I know that you've been doing a Lana Del Rey cover on this tour.
We have.
What was the inspiration behind that? Why Lana video games?
okay.
It's an absolutely amazing song. But yeah, I just
Such
wondered
an
why
amazing
that.
song. I've always really loved her, and I think when video games came out, which was, I don't know, long time ago now, it would be like my sound check song. Like I'd just be like, it's you, it's all for you, and sound check. And I think
That's
Ryan
right.
was like,
Yeah.
and then Ryan was like, oh, that sounds really nice. You know, maybe we should cover that sometime. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So about 10, maybe 12 years ago, we put it in the set. So we put it in a set for maybe a couple of tours or like a touring cycle or something. And I loved singing it. It's like, it's easy to sing. It's fun, all of that. And then for this cycle, we were kind of like scratching our heads as to what I was going to sing. And we just decided to throw it back in. Yeah, I mean, I think Lana Del Rey is amazing. Her songwriting, lyrics, like she's
phenomenal.
incredible.
Yeah, I love it. I feel like she's been getting a lot more love recently from a lot of
good.
artists. Are starting to recognise the influence she's had on the
Yes.
scene, and no, I massively respect it. And for you, Ryan, Where Is My Mind? Pixies?
Well, Pixies are my favorite band by far.
They weren't even in your dream festival.
Well, I mean,
We should have honorably mentioned them on, like, they could have opened for the Beatles, maybe.
that would be
Oh,
cool.
That
Yeah.
would be very cool.
Yeah, they opened for the Beatles on Sunday night.
That's perfect.
There we go.
That's
We've
brilliant.
snuck them in.
Yeah.
We've snuck them in. No, the Pixies are amazing. Do you have any special connection to that song, or is it just you love the song so you wanted to cover it on the tour?
Well, we tie it into the Matrix, and we make a medley out of those 2 songs.
Oh, okay.
So, Where's My Mind drops after the bridge in the Matrix, and same tempo, same chord progression really as the chorus, except for one chord. And there's a lot of similarities between the 2 songs, so they just fit really well.
They're, like,
And
meshed. Yeah.
yeah, and I think it's just always really dope to like drop really big covers in a live set without them taking over the set. Like even with the video games, it's like we do a truncated version, and with Where's My Mind, we do like a verse and a chorus, and then it segues back into the Matrix. So it's like these little homages where people can just like totally sing along, and it lights the place up. So it feels like a good party trick for writing a set list.
So would you ever consider doing anything in the form of covers for maybe like a short album or anything? Or is it something that you would predominantly just keep in your live shows as a bit of extra flavour?
Covers album, yeah. I mean, it'd be super fun. I guess the question is like, would you spend all that, life force making another album full of covers, or would you just make more original music? We kind of like always lean towards original music because it's what the world doesn't have yet. Whereas, everyone's heard these songs. You might do a cool rendition.
Yeah.
And it might even be the thing that blows you up. Like that happens all the time.
I don't blame you, to be fair. I love the slightly heavier version of video games. I saw the TikTok where you put it out playing it, and it's just amazing.
Oh, thank you.
I really, really enjoy it. But speaking of original music, another song I wanted to touch on from the new album is Normalize, because I think that that's an unbelievable song and really leans into people being able to express themselves. How do you think people view your music when they come into a show? Because people seem to really connect with it, and the connection with your audience seems so strong, and that's built up over the years so much. How do you feel that connection when you're on stage?
I mean, we feel it very, very loudly and potently. It's amazing. We've never had shows like this. Like, you know, we were a band for 15, 16 years before the TikTok thing. And now we've been kind of, you know, in the aura of that shift for a few years now, playing to these younger audiences. And yeah, it's just like, you know, there was then, and now there's this new frequency, and it's wild how like positive and passionate and emotional and meaningful the feeling in the room is for the audience now. I mean, it's always been good. Like back in the day, it was like you go, you play, people get really excited, and you know there's joy in the room, there's connection. Music does these things always, but it's just on a different level now. Yeah, it's almost just like this holy experience. It's almost like a congregation. I don't know. Yeah, it's intense.
It's their particular age. Like, it's just that coming of age time when everything that you love, you just so fiercely love, and everything that you hate, you so fiercely hate. You know, it's a really passionate time, I think, for kids. And so we're just like getting them in this moment where it's like, they just, it's just pure love, literally. It's the best thing ever to be in a room with that many, you know, thousands of kids who are all feeling like that together, you know, with us. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
We're very lucky.
I want some of that. It's like, I feel like, I think I even read something where like between the ages of 18 and 23, I probably have that wrong, but like even just like neurochemically, we take in music differently. Like we're just more turned on in that time frame.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people find their favourite albums kind of in that period of life.
Definitely.
Of course, you're always listening to and discovering new music, but there's some albums that you listen to when you're younger that just stick with you forever.
Yeah.
And I think it's, as you said, in that time when you're finding yourself and finding out what you're about, that music's then going to have like a ulterior meaning in your head, and you'll link it to that time of life. And I think that's why music's so special. And I've seen a lot of people saying online, mother's not a phase, it's a lifestyle. And it's very rare that I see a band have this strong a connection with their audience. Like obviously you see some of the maybe like mega bands or Harry Styles of the world where there's a few super fans, but it does seem like you guys at every show, the whole crowd is really there and loving it and expressing themselves. And I just absolutely love it personally.
Yeah, it's such a gift. We're very blessed with these. I don't even like to call them fans. Like they're the FamFam. They're our family. They're our friends. You know, we're all in it together. And yeah, it's amazing.
I mean, with the time it took for the music to actually then take on, it feels a bit like the Back to the Future situation where you're like, you won't understand this, but your kids are gonna love it.
We had like a reverse career for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And thank God.
Yeah, seriously, thank God.
Yeah,
who knows where we would be right now if it wasn't for TikTok and this whole thing, you know?
Oh, we'd still be
doing it, but it would be very different. Yeah.
What was like the moment when you realized that it was really starting to explode online? Was there like something where you saw a video that had like 1 million views and went, oh crap, this is really starting?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like 2020 August, and we were in the studio, and it was like got the email from the management. It was like, you know, we've sourced the increase in numbers to an app called TikTok.
We're like, what's TikTok?
TikTok.
And they're like, if you can download it and go online, make an account, and just like sniff around. And I was kind of like saying this in the studio, like, okay, I gotta like download TikTok, and someone in the studio is like, don't do it, it's like Chinese spyware. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, I got to. I'm going for it.
It's too late now.
Yeah, it was funny. It was like we just knew nothing about it. And now it's just so ubiquitous.
I just remember you showing me, like, you just had started our TikTok account, and you're like, you'd put up a couple of TikToks, and I think they had like tens of thousands of views. There might have been one even that had like 100,000 views, which at the time, like we'd never seen any of our videos anywhere have that kind of thing, other than maybe like our main music videos over time or whatever. But just to have that like instantaneous, I remember you showed me and I was just like, what? This can't be true. This is not real. Yeah. And then of course it just spiraled from there. So
yeah.
It's massive. It's a weird world, TikTok, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
We'll do it where we get some videos that we don't expect to do well, that do really well. I put one out probably about a year ago now where, I don't know if you know what a carvery is in the UK.
No.
So it's like you go to a restaurant. This is a really rogue story to tell. But,
you know,
it's explaining what a carvery is as well. You'll go to a restaurant and you'll pick a couple meats and your vegetables and stuff, and it makes like a Sunday roast, a Sunday dinner. But at a particular place called Toby Carvery here in the UK, you can also get mac and cheese with it. And I said that that's criminal and that you shouldn't do that because it's like mixing. I'm trying to think of it's like I don't know what
it's just not
alternative
right. It's
would
just
be.
not right. You just don't do it.
And I put that out like just a 5-second clip, and it got thousands of comments, hundreds of thousands of views. And I thought, why is the stuff that we're putting out that's actually good not doing as well? But if I insult someone's culinary choices, it's game over.
But it's so relatable, right? To
That's
everyone here. Like everyone here, it instantaneously is like, oh, I so understand. And those seem to be the things, those quick little, just tiny little connections. That's what seems to do well on the app. It's a strange one.
Everybody loves a Sunday roast scandal.
How could you not, really?
Is Sunday roast a thing in Canada as much as they are here? Is it really exist?
No.
We like our roast and Yorkshire pudding though.
Oh yeah,
Whoa, there we go.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I mean, we're from Yorkshire, so Yorkshire pudding is right down our street. I went to a place in Leeds the other day and had poutine. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah, that's right.
If
you were French, you'd say poutine.
There you go.
Yeah.
But I had it with it was like cheese, chicken, bacon, fries, and gravy, and I thought that was really good. I don't know if that's the traditional way to have it, but I really liked it.
I think traditional is just cheese, curds,
gravy, and
and fries.
That's it. Yeah, in the north, it's quite common to have chips, gravy, and cheese on top.
Yeah.
So it's almost like poutine.
That's pretty
It's
much
close
proof.
enough.
That's poutine. Yeah.
I don't think it would take a rocket scientist to like see some cheese, see some fries, see some gravy, and just
be
put it all together.
I wonder if this would taste good together.
This would be pretty good.
I don't know. I don't even know if the French can take credit for that. It's just like it's just a no-brainer. It's like, duh, that's exactly what you do with those ingredients.
But I wanted to take it all the way back to when you were first starting out as a band and ask for some of your musical inspirations around that time. What albums did you have spinning back then? What artists were you listening to on a regular basis?
I was listening to a lot of like Clapton and classic rock, blues guitarists, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jimi Hendrix. Got into the Beatles. This is all kind of like pre-pubescence.
Okay.
So I was like a little kid.
Yeah.
And then when I was a teenager, actually I discovered the Pixies in that time frame too, at 10 years old, via like my dad, who had really cool taste in music. And then I was kind of into my brother's music, which was heavier, like Pantera and like Ministry and Black Sabbath and that kind of stuff. Got into Tool. Kind of like dug the new metal phase there for a second, like Deftones and even like Limp Bizkit I was into.
Really?
Like in high school.
I feel like those two have made a bit of a comeback in recent times.
Everybody has a Limp Bizkit phase at some point. Everybody does.
It wasn't as potent as like, you know, the Pixies or the Beatles, that kind of thing. But yeah, kind of all over the place. But what I fancy as good stuff. Yeah, I think it's all really good stuff.
Totally.
Yeah.
How about yourself?
Yeah, lots of similarities there. My parents were really big music people, and we had a huge record collection, so I listened to like everything. I got really into jazz. That was kind of like where things started for me, was like on like taking blues and jazz lessons on piano, and then I started to take an interest in singing, and so my piano teacher started teaching me standards, so I started listening to like Ella Fitzgerald and Billie Holiday and like the great Sarah Vaughan. I was really into Joni Mitchell as a kid. My mom really liked folk music, Joni Mitchell in particular. That one album, Joni Mitchell Blue, is probably like my favorite album of all time. But yeah, like Cream and like lots of classic rock. My dad was really into that stuff too. Elvis was also huge for some reason. Right. I took a liking when I was like 7 and it never ended.
That's it. Yeah,
I think like I do have like a bit of like of a Broadway like blah thing happening, and I think that all comes from
Yeah,
stems from my original Elvis training.
Elvis reincarnated.
I used to think so anyway.
Do you know, when I was a kid, the first band that I was ever proper into was Queen.
Queen,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, it was quite similar for me. I think it was through my mum, and it is quite interesting the influence that your older relatives have on your music taste as a whole, and then you kind of bring your own taste into their taste, and it becomes this whole new path. And then if you were to have children, then they would take yours and take it to a new path. So it's just,
100%.
yeah, it's cool to see that.
Yeah, I had a Queen phase now that I think about it.
Yeah,
For sure. I used to love that bicycle song as
Fantastic.
a kid.
Fantastic.
I
love
such
that
a
song.
song a
With
kid
the-
would like. I like to ride my bicycle. Just like super titillated whenever I heard that.
My favorite part of that song is the bike bell like interlude in it, where they all start ringing the bells, and then it kicks in with the guitar, comes back in.
It's like,
and
that's so cool.
It's so cool.
So like word painting.
Yeah. That was fantastic. Yeah.
I sort of bands like Deftones and Limp Bizkit, etc. I feel like over here at the minute, their band merch from back in the day has become like a bit of a fashion statement.
It has,
especially
yeah.
Deftones.
Oh,
I don't know if
yeah.
it's like that in
Yeah.
Canada and,
Yes,
and
it
the US
is.
as well.
The white pony cover is just everywhere now.
Yeah. I mean, band T-shirts in general, like at large, just made a huge comeback. Like, I feel like there was a time, and then there was like, you know, people wore the stuff they bought maybe when they saw the show or on tour, but now it's like more shops and record stores like carrying all these like classic T-shirts and these whole sections in vintage stores for just specifically band T-shirts that I think kind of disappeared for a while.
Yeah.
Which is cool. I mean, I think it's awesome. It's like, yeah, might as well.
It is, and vinyl's made a pretty big comeback as well, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Which is nice. I
Yeah.
think maybe a lot of people are, of course, Spotify and stuff is really amazing for that access to music, but I think a lot of people want to actually support their favourite artists a little bit more, and it's quite nice to actually own an album that you love as opposed to just kind of having it available whenever you want to stream it.
100%.
I think with physical medium as well, something I wanted to touch on with you guys was the artwork that you guys use for your album covers, and the fact that your guys' logo is 3 scratches essentially, and that features predominantly on a few albums and then subliminally on other ones, and on one album on the CD itself and not actually on the front. So I just wondered if there was any significance to that logo at all, or whether it's just a little Easter egg for people to find.
It's like a real deep dive you just... I'm like, how do you know all of this?
So our very first album cover, which isn't Touch Up, people think that's our first album, but it was a self-titled album called Mother, which was our first band name.
Yeah.
And so on that cover, there was a 3-headed rooster, and which was changed to a 5-headed rooster when we got our record deal. But the reason it was a 3-headed rooster is because the band began as a trio.
Right.
So there was 3 of us, and so we were the 3-headed rooster, and we put 3 scratches underneath its talons to represent 3. A trio, and then the band turned into a 5-piece, and that made our logo not make sense. So we're like, oh no, what are we to do? Let's just keep it anyway. Yeah.
So it just kind of stuck around as a bit of lore throughout all these
Yeah,
years.
I think so.
Yeah, it's good to have a symbol. I see it as an M. I've kind of changed the definition in my mind.
As if it was the 3 strokes of the M, and then
Yeah.
you just need to connect it that way. Yeah.
Which Molly, who designed it all, the band artist, and my sister, she hates that I see it as an M. She's like, she kind of sees it as revisionist, like you can't just like change the past. Like, yeah, I can.
Watch me.
Yeah, voila, it's an M.
Because with your name previously being Mother, I know there was some story around why that then became Mother. Would you be able to go into that at all?
For sure, yeah. So we were Mother, and we were independent, and then we gave our Mother CD with the 3-headed rooster to a record label called Last Gang Records. It was a boutique label out of Toronto. Very cool label at the time. They had Metric and Death from Above, and they wanted to sign us. We couldn't believe it. But they wanted us to change our name because they did an internet search, and there was like a bunch of other bands called Mother around the world.
Right.
And so we toiled over it and tried all these different like pairings with Mother. Mother Opera was like on the table there for a minute. Like we thought that was just a really solid option, which it wasn't.
Yeah, it would have been a different feel for the band then.
Yeah. And then I don't know whose bright idea it was just to like repeat the word, but it wasn't taken, which is hilarious. Like,
nobody thought to do it twice.
nobody in the world had that band name. Maybe that means it was a terrible band name.
I think it does. But
Not anymore. I mean, at the time maybe, but now
it
arguably
works.
not at all. Yeah.
Well, the band makes the name. Everybody knows that. It's like
Yeah.
Pearl Jam. Come on. But it's a great name because it's a great band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same with the Beatles. I mean, if you actually extract that for what it is, that's a terrible
Totally.
name.
Spelt like a rhythm.
Yeah,
It's so dumb.
Yeah, it was all because all the Merseyside bands were all doing jokes on beat, so they went with Beatles, but then left Merseyside entirely, conquered the globe, and the name is just a joke. So
Yeah.
but
It's
it works.
actually funny when you really start thinking about it. You could probably laugh about many
Most bands.
band names.
have-
Yeah.
Yeah. Bad. Yeah.
There's a
Bad
strange one
names.
from our hometown of Leeds. I always think this is the most unique band name. They're called the Pigeon Detectives,
Oh,
which is like,
Pigeon Detectives.
why did you pick that name? Is it like
Yeah.
pigeon police officers? Like,
Yeah.
I think it's meant to be as if pigeons are detectives and they're kind of flying over and can
Okay.
look at everyone. That's what I derive from it anyway. But it is certainly unique. But another one for you guys. After touring for nearly 2 decades now, there must be some funny stories you can share with us from the road. We ask every band this, and we get some either amazing or slightly disappointing answers.
Yeah.
So it's the best stories you can share from the road.
We probably arrive at the disappointing end
Yes.
of the spectrum.
I wish we had, some funnier stuff other than like Ryan falling off the stage and things like that, which has been hilarious.
Or
couple
like
of
just
times.
things we cannot name, you know?
Yeah,
Things that can't be
There's-
repeated.
Yeah,
Never talk about that.
We
that's
had
on the no-no list.
Yeah.
we had Brendan from Wheatus on a couple of weeks ago, and he was telling us how he went for a wee outside the tour bus once and got caught in the middle of a shootout where there was a cop and
with
someone
his
shooting.
trousers down.
While his
Oh.
trousers were down his ankles, so he had to jump inside the like suitcase storage compartment of the tour bus and shut
my
it.
God.
Um,
Oh my
Wild.
God. That is an
That's
absolute
crazy. It's
Quite an
nightmare.
interesting one.
We toured with a
Jeez.
band who had a great band story. One of them got abducted. Yeah.
Who?
I think this was even before your time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. This was like our first Canadian tour. Like one of the band members got abducted in a car, like ransom kind of thing.
Oh my God.
Yeah. While on tour. And I was always like, shit, I wish that happened to one of us so we would have a good band story.
Got a story to go
Yeah.
off with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we did. The only thing I can think of is the time that we missed our flight in the morning with Emmett, and we were like, we would never ever not show up to a gig. Like that has just never happened. Like obviously we would have canceled way before, but we were just always like, no matter what, we will arrive at the gig. And so we ended up like half of us flew to Texas and half of us flew to like California or Seattle or something else. And then we ended up, I think we congregated in Vancouver and we hired a private jet to fly us up to the middle of nowhere, like northern BC. And then by the time we got there, it was already so late. None of our bags arrived. None of our instruments arrived. We got in, like, there were police escorts, like escorted us like at, 150 down the highway trying to get to, and like, I think the other bands on the festival like loaned us instruments. I had no shoes.
Wow.
I was like, my flip flop like came undone, and like, so there was no makeup, no clothes, no instruments. It was
nothing.
like, so that was actually a pretty good story.
Yeah,
that
I was
was
like,
actually.
yeah,
I was
very-
going to say that falls in the not disappointing category.
yeah,
for sure.
it's not as disappointing.
That's a good story.
And like the private jet part too, like it
Yeah.
was such a crappy day, but we all got on that private jet and we're like, oh
Wow.
my God.
And
Like,
it was certainly during a time where it was like
we should not have had a private jet.
it was quite the expense.
We're all like
Yeah.
working, serving jobs at home, and somehow like managed to.
But
I think
it
we
just
spent.
meant that much that we made the gig. It's like we were willing to like break the bank and get a charter plane just like
Yeah,
to fucking make this gig.
the headlining band actually were kind enough to play before us, and so we
Wow.
actually ended up, quote unquote, closing out the headlining the night. That was Simple Plan, I think.
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
so
I had
that
like
was
some
very
whack
kind of them.
pedal
Yeah.
board. Someone like put a pedal board for me together, and I don't know if you play guitar, but like I don't know, it's just like sleeping
it
in
was-
another man's bed. I don't know. It's weird.
Didn't feel quite right.
No.
I think it was for like a violin or something. It wasn't even a guitar pedal board.
Yeah.
That must have been interesting to play
Yeah,
with.
but you know, it's like we rocked out. It was okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no
make
shoes.
do with what you got, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if that shows nothing else, that shows your dedication to, you know, your fans and the people coming to see you.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine at that point, like you were saying, that you would have been that large in size either. So it was
No.
just purely out of your own.
And the gig, it was like in northern BC,
Fort
Canada.
McMurray. Yeah.
It was, very small.
yeah.
Yeah, not a high profile,
Just out of the
prestigious
way.
gig.
Yeah.
Yeah, way out of
It
the
wasn't
way.
like we were, playing Coachella or something like that. It was like nobody would know about this festival except the people that live in Fort McMurray.
It would, like, in looking back, it's
It's
like,
so dumb.
yeah,
No, but I think it is important, like, to respect yourself, respect the craft that you do, and being able to make it there. And obviously, it's led to this amazing story as well. So it's definitely worth it. And speaking of live shows, I know you did a bunch of festivals around Europe and the UK last year, but I wanted to talk about one which is Reading and Leeds, because we're regulars there. We're always at Leeds Festival. What was that like?
that was sick. They were kind of like interchangeable. Like, I have a hard time like remembering which one is which, because they're both in this, chaotic, sweaty tent, daytime, and people are just like going off, like crowd surfing, getting flung around. It was just like mayhem, best energy.
Yeah, the crowds were amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all just kind of fast paced, and like you swoop in, you swoop out. We didn't like have a lot of chance to like really like sink into either festival, but it's kind of fun like that. It feels like you can kind of go into battle.
You get a glimpse.
Yeah.
Peek behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We look forward to going back.
Yeah, Reading Leeds is amazing. I think in the UK, it's probably the festival that attracts the most young people. So I would imagine that you had a real good connection with a lot of the audience there.
Yeah, definitely.
Is there any dream festivals or venues? Tim's looking at me slightly angrily right now because he came up with this question yesterday, right? Is there any dream festivals or venues, or if you could play anywhere in the world, what venue would you pick?
Oh.
I don't know, maybe like the pyramids.
Ooh,
That'd be
yeah.
pretty wild.
Right on the very top. Yeah.
Well, they do have a venue there.
Do
Do they?
Yeah.
What?
Oh.
With
In
the
Egypt?
pyramids in the backdrop. Yeah, like Pink Floyd has played
I thought
there.
you meant like
I
you're
thought-
stood on
yeah.
the pyramid.
Well, that would be cool too. But yeah, I'm curious about what this venue actually is. But yeah, I do believe one exists. Yeah,
Wow.
I think that'd be dope.
I'd imagine there would be something like that there, because I know that, artists perform at like Colosseum and all these other world landmarks. So I'd imagine there would be
You mean like the
something
Colosseum in Rome?
Yeah.
People have performed there.
Muse did a whole live album there.
It's the Colosseum.
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't know you could actually do a concert there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I need to go to a concert there. I've walked around it before, but I've never
Yeah.
actually seen
Yeah,
anything.
it's crazy. Crazy.
I went to a couple gigs at Madison Square Garden last year, and I thought that was just like an unbelievable place. It's like the history of it, and being from the UK, you kind of hear about Madison Square Garden and certain other venues in the US all the time. And I wondered how you think the crowds in Europe and the UK compared to America and Canada.
It sort of varies from place to place in Europe.
Yeah.
I feel like the UK is pretty feral.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
in a good
definitely.
way. I mean that with a lot of love in my heart. It's a beautiful, feral, passionate energy. And Canada, maybe people are like a little more tame.
Yep. Yep.
America,
They're wild in America. Just wild.
yeah.
Straight up.
But to be honest, like what, like Mother fans, they're kind of like
They're similar everywhere.
yeah,
Right,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
cut
Yeah.
from the same cloth.
Yeah.
Especially these days, right? It's that youth thing we were talking about. There's just a certain fervor in that demo, wherever you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think something that kind of pushes UK crowds over the edge sometimes is the drinking culture in the UK,
Right.
and how prevalent everybody likes a bit too much alcohol at times.
I like
which
it when
think-
you get to chanting, like the sports chant.
Yeah, yeah.
That really fires me up.
Or
It's
in
cool.
you played Leeds recently, didn't you? Did you
Yes.
did you have a
Yeah.
Yorkshire chant at all?
I believe so.
I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah, we did.
A lot of artists mishear that as your shit. And
Yeah,
there's been people that
We went through this,
that.
yeah.
Yes, we did. Yes, yeah. They thought they were
hilarious.
being like booed before they even got on.
That's it, yeah. Yeah. There's
Wow.
been people
Oh
who've
my
come out on
God.
stage and stopped the show and had to go to the crowd and say, "What is it? Are you chanting your shit?" And like, no, we're saying Yorkshire. And they go, "Oh, Yorkshire, right? Okay, right. There we go. Yeah, yeah."
Oh man,
Ah, that's funny.
that is.
But I think that does play a lot into why UK crowds are as hyped up as they are sometimes.
they're awesome.
I think it can
Certainly.
be,
Yeah.
But we do find that a lot of bands have the same kind of experiences in different countries. That the UK will be a bit more rambunctious, and then when you get to American Canada, it calms down a little bit, and then Europe, you've got an entirely different crowd over there as well.
Yeah, people
Yeah.
can be a bit more reserved in Europe for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, just like it feels a little more adult or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
That European sophistication.
It's it exactly.
The kind of thing. Like I feel like if you went to somewhere like Belgium, that's the kind of place you have to be very mature in yourself. Like I don't think I could go to Belgium yet. I don't think I'm
man.
ready to get there.
I remember our last Belgian show. They were so attentive.
They were very
Yeah.
attentive. Yeah, we played a small, like,
Yeah.
sweet little venue, and
It was like I like
it had a
attentive.
Good, it was a good vibe, though.
Yeah,
like
when people are enjoying, it's like so long as they're enjoying, it just kind of doesn't matter how you enjoy.
Of course,
So long as you
Yeah.
enjoy. And the quiet, sort of reserved attentiveness can be a really beautiful energy to tap into because all of a sudden there's just like a care in the room. It's
Yeah.
like you can't really get away with like being too sloppy. It's like people are listening.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you can kind of hear into the cracks of the music
Yeah.
and it informs the performance in a different way.
Yeah.
And it's great.
I think, there's lots of different ways that people can appreciate music, isn't it? I mean, even at home, some people will sit with headphones on, and then some people will dance around the kitchen with the music on. So there's all sorts of different.
Which
crowds.
one are you, Tim?
Absolutely.
I'm a headphone. Yeah.
You're
headphone
headphones at
kinda
home?
guy, yeah.
Oh, I'm
no,
not.
I do. I put the echo on occasionally. Yeah.
Here's a question though, but does anyone ever just like sit and listen to music anymore without doing anything else while they're listening to music?
On rare occasion, I will put a vinyl on, and then I will listen from front to back on that. But other than that,
And just
it's-
sit down and listen.
Yeah, on rare occasion.
I
but
can't
it's-
even remember the last time. I might have been a kid the last time I did that.
I want to do that. Like, I romanticize that a lot, but yeah, it just, as soon as I put music on, I was like, oh, look.
I think
over here,
I've
I
got
could
a
do
side
this.
question to that though, because when you say just sit down and listen, do you mean like literally just sit in a chair? Because I
Yeah.
feel like you're
Yeah.
always going to be doing slightly something else. Like,
No, I mean, yeah, maybe in the advent of having a phone, but sitting down and experiencing a record.
I've done it a few weeks ago. My boyfriend actually got me a vinyl player. I'd never had one before. So I got one of those, and I've done it a couple of times since then. Like when I've got a new album, I got a new 1975 record the other week, and I actually just sat and listened to the full thing and was like, oh, that was quite satisfying. But then most of the time I find it really hard. I'll end up editing something or doing a bit of work while I'm listening. But yeah, I think the craft of an album has been lost a little bit in the modern era.
Yeah.
I think because people now can just look at an artist's top tracks. It's very rare that they actually just go listen to a full album, but it's sad because that's how the music was originally intended to be listened to.
Yeah. Well, I think, people aren't making albums with that spirit in mind as much anymore. But yeah, hopefully the resurgence of vinyl will help change that. I think albums are better when the artist makes it thoughtful of a journey. Yeah. There's more dynamics. It's like when a record is stacked with singles and everything is just kind of loud and charged because you want as many lottery tickets. I think the album isn't as good.
Yeah.
Maybe stands a better chance of having a hit because you have 12 hit candidates, but that's not an album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
that's
know,
just a
12
album of
singles together.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a bunch of alphas like crowding each other's space in one room.
Yeah, you don't allow any of them to shine through then, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, in that case.
I completely agree, and I actually found it really relaxing going to record shops. Like I'd never really been in one before up to like a month ago.
Oh, cool.
And just going around and like sifting through albums, but kind of relates to what you said there. It meant that I was looking for albums where I want to listen to the full album, not just like 2 songs off it. Obviously, those 2 songs would be nice to have as well, but I'd rather have something where I know I can sit and listen to the full album and appreciate more than just 1 or 2 hits off of there. And I think one thing I really like about Mother Mother's music is it's quite hard sometimes to kind of derive the message from the song. You can take it in many different directions. You can understand it in different ways. And I think when looking into a lot of the music prior to this episode, it's like that online as well. People take completely different messages from different songs. Like Hayloft, sorry. People sometimes think, oh, is that something to do with homophobia? Is that something to do with someone's dad's just angry? Did they actually shoot them? Did this happen? Did that happen? And I kind of love the cliffhanger of it. Was that done on purpose?
Like I said, I don't know what any of our songs are about. They're not written that way, ever.
Open to interpretation, then, essentially. Right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not even interpretation. It's sort of like you get to decide. You get to define it.
A pick your own adventure book, almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to even think of one song where it's like, I want to write about this, so I'm going to now do that.
I feel like you have. It's just less so.
Yeah.
Like Little Hands?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah, Little Hands.
I think you have from time to time.
That was about my friend's miscarriage. So, yeah, that was specific. Yeah, I mean, yeah, broadly, generally speaking, it's more like you're just messing around and all of a sudden the words, my daddy has got a gun, appears. And then it's like, well, what does that mean? Okay. And you start fabricating, you start pulling the story out of this phrase that came from nowhere. And it's more of like a exercise in creative writing, like spontaneous creative writing or something, than it is about like premeditated, intentional writing.
So it's like it's almost like reverse engineering, almost, isn't it? Getting a tiny little idea and then expanding it to the size of a whole track.
That's exactly it. I've watched him write like 1,000 songs, and it's always like that. It always, you can just see like the word bubbles up to the surface, and over top of like whatever melody and chord progression he's coming up with, a word bubbles, or 2 words or 3 words, and then it's like I watch him. He's a storyteller. He starts to find the puzzle pieces of the story that fit into the song. So it's actually pretty amazing process to watch, if I do say so myself, Ryan. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's an interesting process, because I know that's very different. Yeah, because some artists kind of work the other way around, where they come up with a premise and they go, right, this is what this track's going to be about. How am I going to phrase this to make sure I get the right message across? So to have it on the reverse side, I think that's interesting. I like that.
Yeah, thank God for nonsense.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. That was kind of my original point of, it's good that you can derive your own message from it. It's good. I think that's one of the part of the reason that people love it so much, because people interpret it in a way that fits with their life and their story that's going on, potentially, or at least I think that's what most people do in music.
Of course, yeah.
And I think that's why it works so well. Another one of my favourite songs is Arms Tonight. I love that. It feels like a love song to me, and I kind of feel this vibe throughout, where maybe a lot of mother songs are really upbeat and kind of put you in a good mood, but there's a little bit of a dark undertone in there a lot of the time. But Arms Tonight feels slightly happier throughout most of it. And I kind of took the, like, how important it is sometimes. And I think people forget this, like, just to have people you love around you, or just to be able to be held by someone, and that human connection and how important that is. Do you think that that's been lost a little bit in the modern world with social media, etc.?
What has been lost?
Just that, like, human connection of being able to, like, sit, hold someone, speak to people. I don't know, sometimes I personally feel like social media is amazing for many things and helps people in many ways, but sometimes I miss that, like, actually seeing someone, actually talking to someone and having that real life conversation.
Oh, yeah. I think the phone is killing that pretty successfully. Like, you see kids hang out, they hang out, but they're all on their phones. Like,
yeah,
you'll see 7 teenagers hanging on a stoop, right? Like a classic scene where they're just like on a city street, like chilling on a stoop, and they're all on their phones.
Yeah,
right. Even couples, like, quality time in coupledom is like, let's just like sit on the couch and fire up a Netflix while also surfing TikTok and just kind of vibe in the orb of each other's company with all of these crazy little digital portals open at the same time. And so it's probably pretty rare that like 2 people just like sit down with each other and only each other.
I think it's different for us because we have some perspective on what it was like before. These kids that are growing up now, it's like they don't even know what it was like to not have a map to somewhere, or, they don't have any perspective outside of what they know, which is probably like a lot of time on iPads and computers and phones. So I think like I feel really bad for them because like you're saying like, oh, I missed that. It's like, well, it's nice that you know it existed.
Yeah, well, then that's what Arms Tonight makes me feel. It reminds me about that, just like that moment where you've been held by someone you love, and I think that's really special. And
that one's funny though. The kids got a hold of that song, and it almost went kind of like internet hidden meeting viral. They thought it was about masturbation, right?
Yeah, like Little Death,
like
the whole Little Death. So they thought it was about that, which is funny.
Yeah, they like it was this whole thing online, you know, and we like stumbled upon that. That was like the most like bizarre case of people interpreting it one way and then running with it, and then it became this rumor and code speak for, you know, like this like racy thing. And totally unbeknownst to us.
I seen a really weird TikTok account with one of these songs. Was it Verbatim? And it was like a meme where it was like something bad was about to happen in a video, and it cuts off just before. And it's called the Verbatim Guy on TikTok. It's like an XQC meme. He was like a really popular streamer.
Totally.
And it's just him like watching the video, and it's like someone's about to get run over or something. And then the video stops, and then it goes to like a different meme, but it's got millions of views, and every time it's just that song. And I found that quite disturbing. Like someone picked that and thought, all right, I'll just create this really strange meme.
Yeah,
but
I remember that. That was great.
Who thinks
sweet? Verbatim has a new trend. Bring it on.
It did get millions and millions of views, so I'd be taking it.
It worked.
But to close things out, guys, I wondered if there's any artists you're listening to at the minute that you wanted to give a shout out to. Obviously, I know you're on tour with Crawlers here.
Yeah.
Crawlers are amazing. I've seen them a couple
them.
times. Absolutely love them.
Yeah.
So big shout out to them. But is there any other bands you're listening to at the minute that you maybe wanted to shout out?
What was that band we played with the other day?
Gurriers
In
Dublin.
Dublin. They were awesome. Yeah,
They
we
were
loved them.
sick. Yeah, and they got a new record coming soon. So yeah, we'll shout out for Gurriers. Guriers.
I think so.
Yeah.
Something like that. There you go.
Amazing.
Check out Gurriers.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for
pleasure
having
very much.
us.
Hopefully we'll catch
That
up
was
again
fun.
soon.
For sure.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.